Today has been slightly funny. This is the third time I'm recording a video. I've deleted two already, which is something. I thought I'd get better as I do this, but it seems there are regressions which are necessary, I guess. Today we're discussing personal responsibility. Maybe I should say there was a time I noticed I had an issue with how I look. Okay, now that might sound off, but I could never look at a mirror of myself. I hated what I saw, and I thought maybe that was a problem, and I sought to remedy the same. And I remember the first time I did a video and shared it to a group, I wanted to hide, which is normal, I guess. That is vulnerability hangover. If you read any books by Brené Brown. And also, I could not bear to listen to my own voice in a recording. I think there's all these science about air conduction, bone conduction, how we sound different depending on the the medium via which our voice is transported. If I speak to myself, I listen to my own bone conduction. So I sound deeper, perhaps better than how I sound to you, which is air conduction. But then there are always all these people like, oh, your voice is okay, your voice is good, your voice is nice. And I thought, if that's the voice they like, then you guys I mean, then yeah. So this derives from the video Man's Search for Meaning, from the book rather, Man's Search for Meaning. This book was written by Viktor Emil Frankl. He was a Nazi's concentration camp survivor. He was a Jew, and he was a psychologist, a psychiatrist rather, and a neurologist. He was a professor in two fields, and I thought this is amazing. This is someone who's been, everything was taken from him. His family, of his family, no one survived him. Yeah, I mean, the people who went to the camp with him, he's the only one who came back. And the survival rate in the concentration camps was 1 in 27 or 1 in 28. And he came back from that by a series of lucky chances, lucky events, and all that. When he came back, he came back to write the good books which we now read. And I think his most significant contribution was logotherapy, which is it's a philosophy which contends that the highest overarching meaning in life, the highest overarching activity, or highest ranking order for man is to first of all search for meaning. There are other philosophies like the Freudian man's search for pleasure, for instance, and Adler's man's search for power. Then there's this man's search for meaning. So meaning, he did not do away with the other philosophies or the other psychologies or the other contentions, but he built upon them. Okay, Gordon Allport, I think, made this more and more. I think it's called existentialism. It's a form of psychology which is an integration of all that's going on. My favorite author after Viktor Frankl is Rollo May. Rollo May also is an existential psychologist, and I think you should read his works. They're very contracted and deep, and they have like so many multiple faces. So Viktor Frankl says, the question which he asks is there any meaning in life? Is there any meaning to, does my life or does your life have any meaning? And the inversion which came when they were in the concentration camps was this: it's actually not you to ask life if there's a meaning in life. It's actually you who is being asked the question by life. So life is asking you, is there any meaning in what's going on now? Okay, it's not you asking life, it's life asking you. So you've failed, or you've gotten a divorce, or you've lost someone. So the question being posed to you is, what can you do with this? Can you find any meaning in what has been laid in your hands. Okay, it's not it's not that there's some super meaning outside there. Maybe it is there, but we cannot attain to it because, well, we are limited. We are human beings. We cannot even see the future. Man, man is so limited that we cannot see all ends, but God can see all ends. So maybe there's some super meaning outside there, but for us as human beings, there's no such thing as ultimate meaning. Every no Not a single moment is exactly the same as the previous moment. So we need we need to be finding meaning moment after moment, or hour after hour, or day after day. Since events change over time, meaning also changes over time. And I thought this was like a good philosophy. Since you've lost everybody you know, you've lost your cadre, you've lost your career. Now you are nothing. You just have your naked, bare existence. So what should you do with that? And I think that's the basis of all this. So somewhere within the book, somewhere past the center of the book, he says that freedom without responsibility is soon deteriorates to arbitrariness. And I think that's something we can consider for this video. So freedom without responsibility soon deteriorates to arbitrariness. Freedom, obviously, is the ability to choose, the ability to choose without compulsion. The aim of Romanism, or the popish culture, or even just the culture of Rome itself as an empire, was to stamp out a person's freedom, a person's persona, and to have them as an automaton. But the aim of God is for everyone to have agency, to choose what they want, to choose. God isn't afraid of people choosing the side of evil. It's actually an expression of freedom. But the devil does not want people to choose anything they want. The devil wants to bind people into his own system, his system of tyranny of thought, tyranny of everything else. That you have no choice. You just a slave. You don't have a say in whatever happens in your life. And I thought that was important. We are responsible for our lives. I think in this age, there's a lot of talk about traumas, anxieties, and all those things. But I think my favorite example would be to consider the life of Jesus Christ. He was born, then immediately he was taken to Egypt. Okay, that was a foreign land. So people who believe in popular psychology would have found some trauma already in that. Then when he came back, and I think after 3 years or something, he lived in Nazareth. Nazareth was a place full of thieves and barbarians and all these people. It was a place for the mixed races. So he did not grow up in a place which had social support apart from the mother. And in the Bible, nobody talks about Joseph really. So perhaps it means that Joseph might have died when Christ was young, since Mary was some sort of a second wife to Joseph. Joseph had married before, but the wife seems to have died. So that's why he was taking up Mary for another wife. So maybe that's why you don't hear about Joseph. But Joseph died way early before Christ began his ministry. So that's another trauma. Jesus has been taken away when he's young. He lived in Nazareth. He lived with a mother. So single parentage. And from the books by Ellen White, Jesus used to be bullied by his brothers. Not really bullied. Like, they used to leave everything for him to do. So there's that again. And then when he was growing up, there are always these Pharisees. There are always these people who are after his life. So was he still responsible for his destiny? Was he still responsible for who he became? If he had become bitter, would that have been justified? Is anybody justified to do wrong, no matter how much has been done to you? And the answer is no. So another case would be Moses of Egypt. He was born when there was a decree that every son born of the Israeli women was supposed to be killed. And then he was hid in a place for, I don't know, like 2 years or something. And then he was let down to River Nile. And then there was this woman, then there were these kids, then he was taken back to his family, raised by the mother, and then he was taken to the palace. So all these things, or those traumatic experiences, was Moses destined to be a hurt man? Trauma means a psychological injury. So was he psychologically wounded? And then you have Joseph, my favorite Bible character. He, of course, he was born when the mother was the firstborn of Rachel, and then stayed with Rachel for 16 years. He was really loved by his father because he was the only one who used to listen to his father's instructions. And then after that, the mother dies, and then he's sold immediately after as a slave. Then all those things. Are you thinking? So did these people, did they have urgency in choosing their destiny? Ama they were just traumatized, and that was it for them. Okay. Then Daniel and the three Hebrew boys, they were sold before they were 12. They were sold to Babylonian slavery before they were 12. And they lived to be really good men. So what do you make of that? What do you make of that? I think personal responsibility is a thing. We don't get to choose what happens to us, but you get to choose our response. I think there's a book by Covey which says between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space, we get to choose what we do. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space, we get to choose what to do. And in our choice of what to do, then proceeds or emanates all the actions of our lives, whether for good, whether for bad, and all that. Responsibility derives from the word responsibleness. Responsibleness is the idea that all that I do, I I have urgency. I take I take charge of all that follows from that. Okay. Yes, I might have been abused as a kid, but that does not mean that the abuse was right, or what I do in the name of abuse is also right. Like the patriarchs of old, I'm supposed to deal with my own issues and make a good man out of myself. So that's why we say freedom without responsibility is arbitrariness. If we argue that women need this, men need this, children need this, but we detach responsibility from what you're saying, then that's arbitrariness. And arbitrariness is just something foggy, hazy, foolish, something undefined. And I don't think being in a muddle of sorts is in any way empowering. Okay. There's also a quote which says, choice, not chance, determines a man's destiny. I have I have a choice. I have a say in the things I get to do. In doing this video, I had to press record. Okay. In you listening to this video, you had to press play, or even if it's just playing, you had to go to YouTube or to some site and listen to it. So you're responsible for what you listen to. Yes, you're not responsible for all you listen to because it's me speaking, but you're responsible for what you make out of what I say or what everybody else is saying. We there's this story from in a book. There were two twins who were old. They were about 40. And then one of them was really successful, never drank alcohol, never abused women, never never abused himself. And the other twin was just a moron. He was into all the crimes and all the moral evils which we can mention. So one day the news anchors interviewed the two brothers and they asked, why don't you drink alcohol, or why are you like this? And the other brother said, because of my father. Another brother also says, because of my father. So it happens that their father was a drunkard and he was given into the pursuit of pleasure. And you get the response. So one said, I'll never be like my father. And then I was like, I'm like this because of my father. So destiny, arbitrariness, freedom, choice. That's what you're saying. All things happen to all people. We don't get to choose what happens to us. We don't get to choose the weather. We don't get to choose what really, where we are born, what happens to us, the color of our skin, and all those things. But if all the time we're like, oh, my skin color, I was born in not in privilege, I was born into privilege, I was born into wealth, I was born into all these things. But we have the Bible. The Bible shows that people are just born into about the same places. You're not the only person born into poverty. You're not the only person born into privilege. Yeah, the people who are born into privilege and they deteriorate. The people born into poverty and they, should I say, ascend. So there's always some agency. You cannot live your life blaming people all the time. You have agency. Whatever you get in an exam is, you're the one who wrote the exam. So who should you blame? You should blame your lack of brains or something. Okay. And just to follow up on that, we also have IQ is not fixed. IQ grows according to what you do with your brain. Okay. So things are not fixed. You have a significant capacity to enlarge your capacities of mind, of soul, of spirit. These are not things which are just arbitrary. Okay. When you stand before God in the day of judgment, you won't blame your father, your mother, your society. It should be you before God. Okay. I think that's important. Then again, as you said, it's choice, not chance, which determines the larger part of our destiny, which determines the larger part of our day. There was a time in history, there was a country which used to pay taxes of about 90 something percent. And people still went to work, people still went to labor, people still did their part. Then the people blame taxes for their lack of food. The people blame the political system on their lack of food. People have always been corrupt. People have always been corrupt from the time of Christ, from the time of Cain. People have always been corrupt all the time. So you cannot change that. What you can change is your response to these things. And I think that's an important thing to say. You don't get to blame people for your entire life. There's a day you have to take responsibility for your actions and maybe for the actions of those who are directly below you. Of course, beyond a certain age, children decide to do things for themselves, but at a certain age below which parents have almost a complete say in what their kids do, you can still influence your kids at that time. But at beyond a certain age, you don't have a say anymore. And yes, you can influence, but you cannot do for them. So beyond that stage, do not take responsibility for their actions. But below a certain age, you have to take responsibility. You just can't let kids grow up alone. The idea that kids are born angels, they'll always do good, they have white hearts. It's foolish. Kids are very violent, and we all born into iniquity. So I usually think in the Bible stories, there was a time in it there are only human beings on earth: Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel. And Cain killed Abel. So who taught Cain how to kill someone? These are natural things. We are all born with those desires to kill, jealousy, aversion. The things which are there. Every kid has them. Okay, so a good character is not inherited. You have to cultivate it. You have to cultivate it. Fortitude and rectitude and the ability to persevere under difficult situations is actually yours to develop. Yeah. Then lastly, we have future. This is lastly. Future. You're also responsible for your future. What you make of yourself, what you make of your name, what you make of your family, what you make of your nation. That is up to you. We again, we are all born into this mass. Everybody is born of a woman, okay? Some people think men can have kids. Not really. Scientifically, even in magic, men cannot give birth. Okay. So we are all born by women, and that's where we will begin. We will begin in some uterus somewhere, or even if it's IVF, it's still the same thing over sperm. You make of that. Then we are all born children. What you make of ourselves is our responsibility. Yes, there are things which can, there are factors. Maybe my parents are richer than yours, maybe your parents are richer than mine. Yeah, those things can play a factor, but above all, it's my agency which is responsible for my future. So my future is not dependent on God or on Satan or something, but on me. Okay. Yes, God actually does not do anything for you which has given you power to do. Prosperity does not come by prayer, as one of the pastors said. You get to do what you do, then God blesses what you've done, then that's how you get to grow. Okay. And then Satan can never force any person to do evil. Any evil we do is because of ourselves. Okay. And you take the blame for that. Okay. And then lastly, I think we had hinted on this judgment. When there's always a judgment in your own mind, in the minds of others, in earthly courts, there's always judgment. And also, it's good to remember that we'll be judged for anything we do. I think I read this in a former video, Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13 and 14. It says, "Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man." So our duty is to fear God. Have you failed? God still wants you to obey his commandments and to fear his commandments. Have you lost a job? Yeah, it's bad, but God still says, fear me and keep my commandments. Did you get a divorce? Did you lose someone? You're supposed to fear God and keep his commandments. We don't know. We don't know. We don't know whether what happens is for good or for bad. But we believe from Romans 8:28 or from the lives of other men who lived before us that God is going to make all things work for good. Maybe not immediately, but in the long run. Verse 14, "For God shall bring every work into judgment, including every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil." So there's a God in heaven. Whether you want to believe it or not, there's a God in heaven. It's impossible for human beings to exist on their own accord. Have you ever thought that without the moon there would be no life on Earth? Without that moon you usually see in the night sky. Yeah. These things are not arbitrary. They were designed by someone. So if you want to call it the universe or something, you're worshipping Satan. It's either God or Satan. Yeah, I think that's it for today. This was slightly somber, but think upon these things. Have a good day.